Welcome to another OCD Recovery Instagram Live. I'm going to be talking a little bit today about the journey of OCD recovery, not just the journey of going through the steps to get better, learning what is needed to get better, but about finding places to help you get better and all the hurdles that come along that road. Now, what I mean by that is specifically, one sec, let me just after I shut that door. What I mean by that is all the things that can take us off track of where we're wanting to get to. So first of all, the first thing is on our journey, as we all know too well, there's so much stuff out there that doesn't help us. And what I mean by that is books, different therapists, programs, courses, online websites, YouTube videos, anything. So much stuff that doesn't lead down the journey to OCD recovery. Now, that's what leads people to feeling alone. So let's start off with a few of these. Some of these would be websites that start off claiming things like this: be OCD free in 7 days, 20 days, or 30 days. Absolute crap. Now, the reason I highlight it like that is somebody is not going to go where they've learnt a behaviour for many years and they've got into a way of thinking or being afraid of something. Suddenly, as suggested by someone, for you it's 7 days, for you it's 7 days, for you it's 7 days, for you it's 7 days. Doesn't work like that. You can't. Everyone is unique and different. We're all different stories, different journeys with OCD. You can't just pigeonhole it and say, right, that's 7 days, that's 7 days. It doesn't work. And that there's too many sites that do that. And usually they follow a format of going down a website where you go down and there's more and more text tends to become red towards the bottom, and then it has a price for something at the bottom. It's a real sales pitch, and those have to be watched for because there's tons of anxiety sites like that. And when I was trying to get better, I went on lots of those and I paid for lots of those packages. Some of those ones being ebooks that promoted only distraction and just keeping yourself constantly distracted all the time, so that you didn't get into an anxiety cycle because you were constantly distracted, which isn't possible when you're terrified of something like harm OCD or so on. It will just keep playing along chronic guilt and chronic anxiety in the background. So that wasn't possible at all. Then plenty of the other sites will be just loads of reassurance, where they'll just be constantly reassuring you with, you are not this is anxiety, labeling every symptom they can think of, which is not helpful because it's just an endless reassurance cycle. So that can be one of the hurdles that you might come across on your journey to OCD recovery. Other things are books that do not give you what you need to get better. And unfortunately, some of those books are still incredibly mainstream at the moment and promoted all over the world, yet they do not lead to OCD recovery in the majority of cases. Now, I've always said, a phrase of mine has been, there are very few books that I can think of with the word OCD in the title that actually lead to OCD recovery. Now, that comes as a shock to a lot of people because they think, well, hold on, that's so many books that I've heard. Right, well, yes, that actually is the case. Yes, those books are very helpful. A lot of those books have got many very helpful tools in relating to OCD, learning to live with uncertainty, mindfulness, changing our relationship with OCD, and so on and so on. However, they do not cover the main tools that are needed in the cases of where you have chronic guilt relating to harm OCD, POCD, where it's latched onto a false memory or something like that. That will not release it. You can listen to endless tapes of thoughts being played over. You can write out thoughts. You can do a meditation retreat for 5 years. It wouldn't make any difference to that fear, because that's the main problem that's in the OCD community today, is this main problem where it's oversimplified that OCD recovery involves leaving thoughts there, changing relationship with the thoughts, changing our awareness of the thoughts, learning to live with uncertainty, and that alone will cut it. That alone won't cut it in the majority of cases. It helps hugely and is a large, large part of the journey. But often in a lot of cases, as in mine and so many people that I've worked with and who come in and email me daily, are, for example, when you've got a false memory that you think you've caused harm in the past, that locked on guilt stays chronic and your brain won't take the risk to let you off the hook. It just keeps playing that. Now, I could view it and say that's OCD, it's just OCD, I can see it's OCD, but my brain won't let me off the hook because it believes, no, I think it is real partly, and I do believe it'd be awful and terrible and the worst thing ever. And because of that, it still won't release until I moved to what was laid out by the founder of CBT, Albert Ellis, but unfortunately not covered mainstream in OCD recovery books and help books, is that unconditional self-acceptance and learning to see that things aren't awful, beyond, out of this world, bad, terrible. That catastrophizing we do where we move from A to B, 0 to 100 very fast, and we view something very irrationally, and that's what spikes up the anxiety. It's in that situation that we're learning to calm things down, see things rationally for what they are, and learning unconditional self-acceptance means there's no condition on me accepting myself. I'm at peace with me regardless if I have been violent, regardless if I don't love somebody, regardless if I've been a bit mean, regardless of whatever thing you can put into that bracket. Okay, so that is incredibly, incredibly important. Now, that was laid out in the foundations of CBT by Albert Ellis, but it was not carried mainstream enough. And in the main books that are often recommended on OCD, that is not in there. Now, this, what Albert Ellis was teaching, was not rocket science. This was from the Stoics, the Greek and Roman philosophers, from Stoicism. That's where it originated from. You can look at great works by the likes of Epictetus, Diogenes, Seneca the Younger, Marcus Aurelius, all of that which formed the foundations of what Albert Ellis then set out with Aaron Beck in the formation of CBT today. Unfortunately, CBT then moved to just carry along, going in a direction of, for OCD, not interacting with the thoughts and focusing primarily too much on that. The problem with that is, yes, we do not interact with the thoughts and we do not dispute the irrational beliefs in every thought because OCD keeps morphing. Yes, that is correct. However, what OCD will do is although it will move around, once you have a good understanding of unconditional self-acceptance, that sets the scene. And once you understand that, then whatever it tries to latch into, you understand fully that, there's nothing that's going to pull me away from my acceptance of me, unconditional self-acceptance. So, although we're leaving it there, if we just leave a fear there, but we're terrified of it, a lot of times we'll be able to go to the position of uncertainty and float along and just feel comfortable in that floating state. However, for a lot of people, they won't be able to get to that floating, uncertain state and be comfortable there because they believe deeply that there's something serious threat that's just happened and that they're in risk of something, or they've done something and they believe that writes them off, or so on and so on and so on. And that's causing a real problem for them. Okay, so that's what will happen, and that's why without that unconditional self-acceptance, it does stay latched. For me, it stayed latched on chronic guilt for years, 24 hours a day. All right, when I was distracted, it wasn't there so much, but more or less there the whole time. And that is because it would not let me off something from the past, because I believed that that was real and not OCD, as is the case with the majority of OCD sufferers. We believe it. We are the exception. It is real. It's not OCD. That is what we believe. So that's what it was latched on, and that's what it locked on, and it wouldn't let me off the hook. Now, so you've got the things that I'm talking about on the road here to OCD recovery that lead us off track. You've got a lot of websites that are trying to sell anxiety recovery programs that are nothing but reassurance or nothing but loads of long-term distraction, loads of distraction that they use as a long-term method. Distraction is a short-term method. It will not work long-term. It will not work for chronic guilt and for a lot of chronic anxiety cases. It will help take the edge off, but it won't get under there. Okay, so that's the next point. The third point is therapists that do not understand OCD, which is the majority. Okay, now I know I will raise the temperature in the room when I say things like the majority of therapists do not understand OCD, because obviously a lot of therapists who are treating OCD, that covers them. But it's the reality, and it has to be mentioned. It's not. If I'm not taking away for 1 second anything about the work and the intentions of the people trying to treat OCD, I think it's fantastic what people are doing and how awareness is changing. We are miles from where we were. However, what I am saying is that the reason that the majority of people are stuck is the majority of therapists do not have the tools to get people better from OCD. Why? Well, because they are mainly using learning to live with uncertainty. They don't go into depth of learning to get under it with a position of acceptance and breaking down people's fears on that. I've always been shocked by the fact that the number of CBT therapists, if I ask, have you heard of Albert Ellis, who founded their profession, have never heard of him, which I think is absurd, considering that if you asked a physicist, have you heard of Albert Einstein, they would look at you with an expression on their face of, are you mad? But actually, in reality, every CBT therapist should definitely understand who Ellis is and read his books. They should have read the main books. They should understand Unconditional Self and Life Acceptance to some extent. That concept is usually not even heard of by the majority of CBT therapists. So that brought me into a great position of doubt when I was on the journey to getting better with OCD. I thought, well, how can this be so? So that was another thing that was sent out warning signals. So although therapy is drastically changing, there are avenues that we need to be aware of. Yes, there are very good CBT therapists for OCD, but they are few. There are many therapy formats that are helpful for overall understanding of our mental health and well-being and our mindset. However, they aren't beneficial to the OCD recovery journey. Take, for example, psychodynamic therapy. Psychodynamic therapy, looking into the past, how your mother treated you, the Freudian way of looking at things, is absolutely the wrong path to be going down for OCD. It opens 1,000 bloody doors to places you didn't need to go. You will be looking at so many avenues in the past of how that relates to your OCD today, and so on and so on, and the sufferer will get completely and utterly lost. Completely and utterly lost. Psychodynamic for OCD is not advisable. It's great for having a good understanding of yourself. I have had psychodynamic. I know psychodynamic therapists. I've dated a psychodynamic therapist for a long time, which meant we had a lot of disagreements when we were having dinner, or then we were having discussions about life and philosophies on life. But it's been an interesting experience. And but in terms of for OCD, psychodynamic therapy by no means is good for OCD. CBT is the gold standard. Now CBT, as I was saying there, it's not some rocket science that is only often when I've heard the name CBT and it's the 3 letters, I thought, well, this is something very complex. That's something that is going to take a lot of studying and research, and only then will I eventually be able to get to OCD. What is CBT? CBT is created by Aaron Beck and Albert Ellis, as I was saying, that is rational thinking, learning to see things rationally, learning to break down our rational beliefs. Coming from the initial format of REBT, which is Rational Emotive Behavior Therapy set up by Albert Ellis, which is the form that I prefer in terms of when it comes to that therapy format. However, what is it? All it is learning to see things rationally. What are exposures? Exposures are learning to just see things for what they are. Learning to see that our fears are an illusion. Learning to see it's not true. So there's no rocket science there. It's learning to see things for what they are. Learning to rationally see, which means in reality, scientifically, it makes sense. Now, in relation to the past, how that was formed through the Greek and Roman philosophy of the Stoics. That whole concept, that philosophy, is where that came from. Seeing things what they are, what is in reality. Now, how did they come about that? Well, by looking through their eyes at life and seeing things for what it is. Learning to see things and see that our beliefs are what change our perception. And our perception is how we see things and how we interpret things. So that is where that comes from. So you've got CBT formed by Stoicism, and that's where that built up to. Now, that's something we can learn and adapt and do by ourselves, by looking at things and coming up with and breaking down our irrational beliefs, looking at things we fear. So, for example, a spider. If we are scared of a spider, we learn to see a spider as a small animal that's just trying to live in this world, is trying to function, and we've built up these irrational fears about it. And by gradually exposing to it, we break those down and show ourselves that those beliefs aren't true. Those are irrational fears. Those are irrational beliefs that don't make logical sense. So that's where the format of where the therapy format came from. So to give you a bit of an understanding. Now, in terms of other paths that can go wrong, other paths on the journey to OCD recovery that can go wrong is trying to do it all by yourself, reading tons of different books, or going to various therapists and trying one session approach. If you move from one session to another session, just constantly moving between sessions, you're not gaining enough giving it enough time to gain the benefit. You haven't stuck it out long enough to feel that. So that's a major problem, because it's like going. If you just keep moving, gym trainer or any other thing, maybe to piano teacher or whatever, and you're only learning the basic and then jumping on to the next thing, you'd have a complete mess. Or like using various different builders for your house, it would all go wrong. So you have to follow a format, but that doesn't mean that you stick with somebody who's not getting you results. Now that is absolutely crucial. So many people on the journey to OCD recovery find a therapist they get on with, they like, they're friendly, and they understand each other, and they think, look, I like this person, they're trying hard, and they're doing well, and we've got some gains, and then they stay with them for years. They must seek a second opinion. If you're not moving forward, you need a second opinion. It's not about having a therapist who's lovely and sweet and kind and friendly and you love and you get on with and you don't get anywhere and you don't get results. That's not what it's about. I liked what Albert Ellis always said. He said you didn't even really need to like your therapist, but as long as they taught you the tools to get better, that's all that mattered, which was different from Carl Rogers, who would have said that it was very important to have a deeper connection with the person to help them, which I'm sure Albert Ellis believed on some extent. However, I think that the problem with not having any relationship with a therapist is it's good to have a connection, and I encourage that, especially with my groups and all the one-to-one work I do. We have this good connection and everyone, we get on well, and so that we can sort of anchor in there and help them get better so they don't feel alone. I think it's very important. However, at the same time, you don't really need, it's only the tools and the things that you're learning. It doesn't matter if you really didn't get on, but what you want to avoid is having a therapist that you just get on with very well, but you're making no progress, because it happens all the time. You see it all the time. Someone has a friendly therapist that's moving them along, but isn't getting that they're going along so slowly and not making much progress. And even if you look at a span of 3 or 4 years with that therapist, the improvements they've made have been very, very small and just kept them ticking over. And so I think that's hugely important that you get a second opinion. Other things that I think with OCD, if you've been, I've often say this, if you've been practicing a lot of meditation, mindfulness, doing a lot of learning to live with uncertainty, and you're still feeling strong physical symptoms, chronic anxiety, Don't just carry on doing what you're doing. You've got to change it up because it's not getting you better. Now, that's not to say that that doesn't work. I have so many people, including myself, on so much of my journey that have used that, and it is a vital part of OCD recovery and has been very helpful. However, if you are doing it and it is not bringing you any relief, and you are still feeling as anxious and chronically guilty or whatever, until you've looked into those beliefs, it will carry on. I have no doubt whatsoever that I would still have the same false memory. Well, it's not a case of no doubt, I just know it because I felt it release. If I had the same false memory, which could latch at any point if my beliefs were different, relating to the past, relating to harm, relating to all kinds of acts or behaviors that I do not want to do or have associated with me, hence why OCD latches to that. So it's always going to do that. It's always going to go back and get in there. Okay? So it's because I don't think irrationally and I have unconditional self-acceptance that I know it where it tries to grab me, I can see it and feel it and I can go, well, actually, it's not as scary as what you're trying to say it is. It's a bit of an illusion there. I can see that. Oh, yeah. And then I practice it. Oh, yeah, I can see it's an illusion. And it wouldn't take away from me as a human. It'd be one behavior, not me in totality. So it can't sabotage me like it used to, where OCD loves to go, if you did X, Y, Z, that's you ruined, that's your life over, ... So that was a really important part. Now I'm going to go back through these questions because I've been talking a bit there and just go through any of these. Let me have a look. Do you believe being deficient in anything contributes to OCD at all? You don't need to be worried about being deficient in anything contributing to OCD at all. You don't need to worry about that because I'll tell you why. All the brain chemistry stuff we see talked about so much is the problem with it is that we get into a cycle of, yes, we realistically, it tends to be that OCD, I imagine, and the scientific community imagines that it's mostly related to genes that are then turned on by environmental factors and so on. However, we do not need to know about the amygdala. We do not need to know about the chemistry in the brain. We can leave all that be. That doesn't need to concern us because that, by knowing that it's not needed for recovery. There was not one part of knowing about brain chemistry that that improved my journey of OCD recovery. Knowing, I've got a thing called OCD, it's in the brain, that's helpful, but all the amygdala and chemicals and serotonin, we don't need to get involved in that. Keeping things simple is the key because OCD wants to make things complicated. Let's have a look. Can you help with my fear of contamination of food? I've been starving for weeks, afraid of allergies and poisoning. How is the best to approach this? I used to have this one, the allergy one. It's a very common one. And absolutely, I will be covering that, but I will be covering that in a separate OCD talk because the allergies one I have done a few times here and there's quite a lot in relation to it. If you're starving and you haven't been eating, obviously you definitely want to be reaching out to medical services and explaining your situation. You do not want to be getting yourself into a position of a serious ill health because of this. It's a case of building up with small exposure so you start eating and taking the risk because at the moment by not eating, you're putting yourself at risk. So you don't want to be sacrificing your life for the sake of this, which is something that you need to be working through with your therapist, along with reaching out to medical services if you're not eating. It's a very treatable thing. It's a thing involved with exposures and building it up. It feels scary now just because of how it's hijacked your thinking, but actually once you get into exposures and build up to that, it will break down. It's a common one. It still tries to grab me sometimes on shellfish. I eat them because it says, the allergy could develop at any time. I eat them. If it happens, it happens. If I die, I die. And I go along with that attitude. Just a question there about, I've been sent out DMs, but I've never been lucky for a reply. I get sent hundreds and hundreds of messages pretty much daily with tons of OCD questions and so on. I can't respond to every single question that I get sent, because most of them are to do with, a lot of them are to do with reassurances and questions in various formats. That's what they tend to stem to. And obviously there's loads with genuine concerns, but I can't respond to the questions that are about is this OCD, or do you know if recovery is possible, and all of that. You need to, if you are messaging me, please put in the title that I'm interested in speaking to Rob in coaching or in group coaching, because I can speak to people in that, but I can't do just responses. I have done many of those, but I can't do in responses text messages, Instagram messages back and forth, because I have very limited time because of the amount of one-to-one coaching and group coaching I do, as much as I'd like to. And I did initially start responding to so many messages until too many were coming in for me to match it. I do often respond to ones, people in severe desperation. I do it in occasionally, but I can't always do it because the numbers of messages is so high. So I'm really sorry that I've missed your message. I am very aware of the severity of OCD and how important it is to you. I know the journey myself of being on the other side of this disorder. I understand very well what it feels like to be stuck in this and to be reaching out for help, and how frustrating it is. I try and run everything I do with a group format, with a one-to-one format, so that, you know, it's significantly we create a platform where people can reach me and get a hold of me via WhatsApp, and it's not a session by session approach. Everyone can reach me, but I can't do it just on Instagram when people are sending in messages. But I am available in the if you attend one of the group chats, you get free WhatsApp support. You can message me, and you can message all the guys in the group. It's a 24-hour support, so there's tons of messaging in there. Okay, let me have a little look here. Sorry, but I have to disagree. My OCD is triggered by anxiety caused by my mum at a young age. CBT did absolutely nothing for me. The biggest help was from a book called The Fear and Anxiety Solution. Great to hear that that the book has helped. A book has helped you. That's fantastic. Whatever works for you is fine. I'm not writing off other things helping people. I think that's great. With anything that helps. Even if you know, I often say, you know, nutrition is not going to help with OCD. But if nutrition helped me with OCD, I would say, oh, it's great for me. But in terms of there are going to be CBT therapists that don't deliver CBT properly, and that's therefore not going to lead to someone getting better, as well as people having CBT that don't understand it or aren't followed through the right things, so then they think it doesn't work for you. CBT works. It works. That's what it does. All CBT is seeing things rationally. Seeing things rationally is reality, so that works. That's seeing things for what they are. Okay, but it takes practice. It does take practice. So knowing about past situations in relation to your mother and so on, very vital in a lot of cases. Yes, if it stems from that mainly, but not in reference to what I was suggesting, where I was saying, looking back at your life, going back into the past and saying, not you here, I'm talking back about yourself, because I can see in your situation, anxiety is predominantly linked to the problem that's here in the forefront. But I'm saying someone who comes in with OCD who's going, what if I have subconscious memory of something that happened to me? What if I have a fear from the past I don't know about? And digging back into the past, that is not helpful one bit. And that opens up so many other troubles. So that's what I was focusing in on, not this situation here, which I can see was very effective in getting into your OCD and anxiety. And I'm glad to hear that has helped. That's really good. Let's have a look. How do you know if you're moving forward or not? Well, you want to have a look at it and think, am I moving? Am I progressing? Am I feeling less anxious? Am I functioning more? Those kind of things. That's what you want to be looking at for your day-to-day life. You want to be thinking, am I moving forward? How am I feeling compared to last year? How was I feeling compared to a few months ago? Because what happens far too often is if people move along and think they're a little bit better and a little bit better, and they're not. They're actually just moving very, very slightly. You want to be looking for significant difference over a certain amount of time. And you will be able to see that if you're making progress. Now, there are going to be long periods of time where that isn't the case. For a long time during my journey to recovery, I was finding it very hard to get certain beliefs. So I was sort of going along in a period of suffering for quite a long time. OCD recovery doesn't go like this, right? And it doesn't even go like this. It goes like this, right? And then that, and then like this, and then down like that, and then maybe up like that, but all over the place, right? And then gradually that, if we look to that whole mess, that comes up bit by bit as we go over time, okay? So it's not that. And people think it is. And people think it goes that, and doesn't go that and then horizontal. It goes all over the place. That's the nature of how it goes. I think it's a very, very important point, because otherwise people come down too hard on themselves. Why the hell am I not up here? I've done all these sessions and I've done all my homework, and it's not a case of that. It's a case of how it comes down to your understanding, seeing things. And then as that comes into position more and more, that then gets into that position. But it can go right back to, not to square one, but it can go right down like that. Square one doesn't exist. It's a concept that we created. Every moment is different, but it can go very much back down. Okay, let's have a look here. Okay. I've just come back from a trip to Devon. It's not me, this is someone's question. Which took 4 hours in the car. The whole time I was full of anxiety and intrusive thoughts and just wanted to come home. Now we are home. I feel guilty that I was miserable the whole time and didn't enjoy spending time with my family. I find it also confusing. Can OCD be really hard, out of your comfort zone or away from home? Absolutely. I used to avoid holidays for this very reason, as do so many. We want to be in the place where we feel anxiety, the least anxiety. So the fact that you went on your holiday is fantastic. You've gone straight into the face of OCD. This is great. This is exactly what you want to be doing. This is brilliant. Don't worry about too much about if it's upset your family. The fact you've gone is an amazing victory, an amazing win that you've done there. Yes, the family, they might have seen that you to anxiety to families, they can think we're doing it to ourselves and whatever. The fact that you've gone is fantastic. If the family's disgruntled by however you were, so be it. It's not the end of the world. But the fact that you're going is the most important thing. And of course OCD is going to make us feel like that. And of course we're going to look back at it and go, oh my God, I was terrible for ... It's going to do that. That's the nature of the beast. So not avoiding holidays is key. Going on holiday, partaking, getting involved is crucial to the OCD recovery journey. So that's a great step. Let's have a look here. How do you deal with OCD making you feel so guilty? I get trapped in the cycle. OCD is going to make you feel guilty. Why? Because, look, OCD specifically picks the past. Why does it do that? Well, because the past can't be changed. It doesn't pick the future. Why? Because you in your head can just go, oh, well, I'll change that in the future, so now you're off the hook. Well, that's not effective for OCD. It has to go in the past and say, Now, it's not going to go with saying you can forgive yourself. Why? Because then that's not going to lock either. So it's got to go to something that you can't forgive yourself at this point. Okay? So that's going to go to there, and then it's going to lock on that. So that's why it goes to that. So then it's going to obviously, because it's done that, that's going to create a sense of chronic guilt. And then you've also got a belief that chronic guilt and talk like sort of judge and executioner in your head, that you're going to sort of torture yourself internally forever and ever, not let yourself off the hook. So then that's going to happen. Now that's a belief as well, because chronic guilt serves no damn purpose whatsoever. It's complete nonsense. I mean, beating yourself up internally all the time, forever and ever, whatever crime you've committed is absolutely ridiculous. For whatever crime you've committed, it's ridiculous. It doesn't serve any benefit to the human making a change, positive change in any way. Even if the human had committed a tremendously bad crime by the views of our society, they could still be able to change, rehabilitate, help other people or victims, or do so much good, but not if they're feeling chronic guilt. Chronic guilt does exactly the opposite. It makes the individual feel that they are wrong, bad, no good, that they should carry on acting like that. They've already crossed the line, so they should more and more, and it's just who they are. And that sort of self-perpetuates the cycle. Albert Ellis does a very good talk on chronic guilt on YouTube, which is a great video. If you just type in Albert Ellis on guilt, you'll see him talking about that. It's a 3-part video, it's only short, and it shows specifically why chronic guilt is such a nuisance and why it's unhelpful. We want to actually change it to acceptance and making peace with ourselves, and then changing our behaviour to help us be most proactive in our lives and society. Okay, let's have a look here. I have harm OCD. This is a very important point, and I want to highlight this point that someone's made here. I have harm OCD and used to believe that I couldn't have children one day because of the fear of harming them and just spiralling from having children. I hope to recover before I want to start a family. Now, that's an incredibly sad story that I see all the time, and I think it's very, very sad, because the reason to this person here, Amanda, I imagine one of your life goals since very young is to have a family and have children. So OCD is pulling that away from you. So what we have to do is live life on our terms, not OCD's. So that means that you need to not wait till you are better before starting a family, because that could take a long time. You might take reading and studying and doing different things might take longer than you want. And life is short. We want to be doing things along the journey. Although it might be a lot quicker, it might be a bit longer than you want. You don't want to hold off living your life. Bring it for the ride. So go, and if you want to have children, go and have children. Why not? It's a great exposure in itself. When you do it, I see people that have POCD, all related fears to that, and when they've actually gone to have children, they're so grateful for having children. Yes, there are some difficulties often, but in terms of the fear and so on, but they're so glad they didn't let OCD take over. So move towards it, not away from it. Thank you so much for that. This is in relation to the Devon post. I almost came home early and stuck it out, but still feel weird for not being able to enjoy holidays like normal people. Now I'm home, I'm so ill because I'm stressed. Right, so let's go into the core here. Not being able to enjoy holidays like normal people. Forget the normal people nonsense. Normal people is an idea that we created. There's no normal. People who haven't got OCD, they'll go on holiday. They may have another problem. It might be all variations of things. Normal people is not a given. We're not. We are just as we are, and you've done your best at going on your holiday and doing the best you can, and that's been fantastic, and that's the best you could do with your brain and in your current thinking and beliefs. So by doing what you've done has been a great thing to do, and you want to carry on doing it, and you want to be giving yourself compassion, not coming down hard on yourself, making yourself feel worse. It's about giving yourself compassion for what you've achieved and what you're going through with anxiety. You didn't choose it. We didn't buy our brain in a brain shop with 50 different brains. We just inherited this brain, woke up in it. Is it normal to feel nauseous with OCD? Nausea, I had a huge amount of nausea. Especially in the morning, stomach cramping, extreme stomach cramping and nausea, all this kind of stuff. OCD wreaks havoc with the stomach, which is susceptible to anxiety signals. Your bicep, for example, doesn't contract like this with anxiety because that muscle doesn't respond like that, but the stomach will tighten and gnaw and all these kinds of things. So that will happen. That is definitely a very common anxiety symptom, but not from a reassurance position, from a position of understanding of what anxiety does. Amanda, I don't have hard OCD, but I do have harm OCD, but I have 3 kids and I agree they're the best exposure. I think it's always sad to think of the things that OCD can take from us. From any of us, people put off events, things they have to work for, jobs, relationships. I see people ring me regularly that are that have got divorced or broken up with their partner they've been with for years because of our OCD, not knowing and acting on it, or all variations of these different things. So we want to step into the fear and live our life on our terms, not adapt it so that so that we're living around OCD. You know, we're bringing OCD for the ride. It's not OCD is not driving this ship. This is us. We're driving the life that we want. We don't let it take the reins. My partner has OCD and will often ask me for reassurance. I know it's enabling and I tell him this. Then he gets hurt telling me I don't understand. How can I reassure but not enable? It's a fine line. OCD recovery from families, friends and therapists does need to have a fair bit of tough love in there. Anyone who thinks that you can do OCD recovery without any tough love and just being compassionate and friendly has no understanding of how OCD operates, and trying to get results like that is pretty much impossible. You have to be compassionate and caring because to them it feels life and death and very tiring to them, okay? That's how it feels. But at the same time, you need to push them along, because OCD is just going to keep pushing them to a position where they do less, and they're just sitting on the couch doing nothing, because that's where it wants to kind of leave you. So you do need to get into a position of helping push them along in the right direction and getting them moving in terms of a healthy life structure. But also you don't want to be engaging in reassurance no matter how much they beg you, because they are going to do that. Because for an OCD sufferer, reassurance and certainty is like the drug of an addict who's addicted to a narcotic is that. So we need to wean them off that. So being compassionate at the same time, but there has to be an element of tough love in there. And I do stress it really can't be done like that. You do need to stick quite firmly to it. You need to not collude with OCD because it leaves them stuck. So you need to be compassionate, fair, and helping them, but also listening to them and understanding their struggle, but not engaging in the cycle that is going to do the opposite to getting them better. Guys, thank you very much for watching this Instagram live. I am doing a lot more of these, trying to do some longer ones so I get covering all the questions. I think it's an easier way for me to cover so many of the questions that I can't always respond to on the DMs. So in here I can respond to a lot of them, and I'll be trying to be on here a lot longer, and then also upload lots of these to the Instagram TV feature that they now have as well. So I'll be doing that. Anything that you specifically want to know in relation, or a main topic that you want covered, let me know. I will be doing more individual topics on different types of OCD, not themes, 'cause I'm not mad on the term themes, but all different OCD thoughts. If you go on Facebook, you can see lots of the old archives of the old Instagram lives. They're all on there, so you can go back and see all the different ones. And yeah, I'll be back on here soon and cover a lot more different things in relation to the OCD recovery journey. All right, guys, thanks a lot. See you later.